What is up, my friends? I'm MB Lee, your host today on the Beat Sessions. Hope everyone is having a great weekend. I'm so excited to be here today and to share my top 10 albums of the year with you. So, my heart belongs mostly in the blues rock, country Americana, alternative rock, rock, and some metal spectrum. And I think these albums will definitely reflect some of that. All right, the time has come to reveal it all. All judgment is on me now. And it was honestly really hard trying to put these in sequential order as they are all very different and I just like all of them, but this is what it came down to, and here it is. Number 10, Smithereens by Joji, aka George Miller. Joji was once a renowned YouTuber turned into hip hop and R&B artist, but he made the list because of his moody ballads and electro pop tracks that are just so heartbreakingly slick with conflicted views of love in this world, which is why I resonate with it so much. The album is only 24 minutes, 9 tracks, and is on 2 discs. While some argue this album should only be on one side and released as an EP, I could see why it is on 2 vinyls and could be on purpose for maybe a DJ setup, like my good friend Mitch pointed out. And if you're not listening to it on a record player, then it shouldn't really matter. And I actually like that it's shorter. Sometimes you just want to listen to something that's, not 45 minutes to an hour long all the time. Number 9 is Misadventures of Doomscroller by Dawes. I remember seeing Dawes with my number 1 band on this list, and they did not disappoint in concert. I actually saw them on Halloween 2018, and it was one of the best concerts I had been to. I always felt they had a loose structure to their music and lengthy tracks, and that's what I like best about them. You can describe some of their tracks as jam tracks, but I think that's the beautiful part of them. They take their time to get lost in their own music to enjoy it. This album does have slightly fewer tracks that are a little bit longer, but I think, well, they obviously did this on purpose. I also liked that the meaning that they had given to the album title Doomscroller, how that we have all been sucked into social media and just end up scrolling and scrolling, and it's just like a nightmare that we don't know that we are living, and it's a reminder to take a break from the screen. This mood piece offers really enjoyable guitar solos, jazz influences, awesome harmonies with a touch of, hey, it's time to wake up and go outside and be a human feel to it. Number 8 is Into the Blue by Broken Bells. Their continued use of minor notes, melancholy, and sad melodies is what attracted me to their style in the first place. In this album, Danger Mouse's beats suit James Mercer's tense, gauche, sometimes awkward and edgy vocals better than their first album. I like that the album had a wide variety to it, crossing over into psychedelia, folk rock, 80s influenced orchestral pop, gloomy guitar, piano riffs, trip hop, and even a longer song they experimented with, Love on the Run, which was one of my most favorite from the list. The eccentric synthesizer beats and sounds creates a pleasant mood for me overall because I know I don't like very upbeat music and like pop. It drives me insane. So this type of music just really resonates with me, as well as the daunting lyrics that are hidden well with beautiful melodies. Number 7, Permanent Radiant by Crosses. I remember listening to Deftones back in the day and actually seeing them in concert as well, and also playing them on the radio when I was a DJ. I describe Crosses very differently from most bands as they are electronic rock, dark wave, and dark pop-ish. They haven't had a full-length album since 2014, and Permanent Radiant isn't a long play either. It's actually an EP, surprise, but it is the only EP on my list, and the reason why I'm putting it on is because they haven't had a long project out since 2014, and I've always just enjoyed the sound that they create. This album is chill, ethereal, and adds some experimentation, such as in Day 1. It has a tropical jungle house beat. Maybe it can be described as rock lo-fi. Anyway, this EP is something you can just put on to chill to, but want a little edge or darkness to it. Number 6, The Hardest Part by Noah Cyrus. I honestly didn't want to give Noah a chance because she was related to Miley, and Miley is, well, Miley. But Noah is nothing like that, and I'm glad that I gave her a chance. Her style touches on indie folk, country, soft rock, and bluegrass, my favorites. These songs are slow burn songs, and they are about heartbreak, relationships, rehab, addiction, love, death, loss, and mental health. Not to mention, her lyrics are super haunting and they pierce you right through your heart. The reason why this album is in my top 10 is really the whole emotional journey this album took me on. It took me through a lot of grief stages in my life that I didn't want to necessarily revisit, but it was interesting knowing how something new can take you back to something that happened to you and connecting both of those together. Number 5 is Blood Harmony from Larkin Poe. This was my first time listening and finding out about this duo and was glad to stumble upon them. Most of their songs are based on blues rock and country, and you wouldn't think these sisters would pack a punch, but you are terribly wrong. Rebecca's vocals are just truly unmatched in this album, as she's able to develop her sound more fully. From allowing herself to be dynamic with heavy hitters such as Bad Spell to upbeat Johnny B. Good vibes and Kick the Blues to mellow and vulnerable in Might As Well Be Me, I think this band is going to be able to revive the blues rock and the younger generation with their modern sounding guitars and intense vocals. You know, I've never been able to find a modern female band that is able to strike such a command when they present themselves, also while being very tasteful in their lyrics. Number 4 is Things Are Great by Band of Horses. I've always loved Band of Horses. I've been listening to this band since their first album. Things Are Great is relatively parallel to other albums such as Infinite Arms and Everything All the Time. Ben's voice has always been a strange, high-pitched sound that I've come to love. It's like when you first taste beer and you're like, nah, and you keep trying it and you're like, yeah, I think I like this. I liked how the band opened up more in their lyrics, talking about navigating through grief and being okay where you are, because regardless, you're going to get through it. Their warm indie rock grooves always touch base with me, making me feel at home, and their eccentric country sounds make me feel like gravity is lessened on me. I saw these guys in concert as well here in Tucson, and they nailed it. I love the song they ended the album with, Coalinga. It was just about moving on, and I like that message because we can't dwell in the past. We need to pay attention to what's in front of us here in the present. Number 3, Bronco by Orville Peck. Orville is one of my most favorite artists of all time. I randomly found him when lockdowns first started here in the US about March 2020 and totally fell in love with his vocals. They remind me of a mix between Johnny Cash, Roy Orbison, and Elvis Presley, with Roy Orbison being one of my all-time favorite artists as well. Orville's voice has only gotten better and can be described as bold, western, and sultry. His voice is like the artist I just mentioned, but more in a gothic dark fashion, like a southern inspired retro version of Elvis-influenced indie rock. To me, his sound is incredibly addicting, and I've lost myself in almost all of the songs that he's ever made. This album is clearly going to be a classic, and probably most of his songs for modern country flair. He brings in American music mythology with a superior understanding of style and presentation, such as always wearing a mask and fashionable cowboy aesthetic. No one knows what his identity or real name is, which is one of the parts that intrigues me the most. Even though I enjoy all his music, you can clearly tell the production and arrangements have drastically improved in Bronco, and that's why he is so high on the list. Number 2 is Impera by Ghost. One of my most favorite bands of all time, and let me tell you, they put on one hell of a concert. Saw them here in Tucson as well, and it was quite the experience to see Tobias Forge and his Nameless Ghouls. I guess I have a thing for masked men. Ghost can be described as 80s and 90s rock, but metal, brilliantly fused with a modern heavy sound. I've actually only known about them for the past 7 years and I was hooked. You definitely hear Van Halen, Bon Jovi, and Scorpions influence in Ghosts, which were some bands I listened to growing up as well. The lyrics are always beautifully forged and disguised in dark ambient music. It's either their ballads that really catch my attention or the dark ambient music. Darkness at the Heart of My Love, with the Victorian era elements in it, really draws me in. One of my favorites on the album for sure, and has its power to it, especially at the end. I really think this is one of Ghost's best album up to date. Number 1 is One is One by Delta Spirit. Delta Spirit is an indie rock Americana band from San Diego, and they go way back with me about 12 years ago. I first saw them play at a Santa Fe venue when they were jamming out to their first album, Ode to Sunshine, released back in 2007, and perhaps also History from Below, released in 2010. Some friends and I were actually there to see Dawes, and Delta Spirit was there playing as well. It was a great, intimate concert. So small that afterwards Delta Spirit was done, the lead singer Matt came to our group of friends looking for some weed. We were like, sorry, dude, we don't have any more. So if it's him again, you know, I owe you one. If you know of this band, you will draw some parallels to the albums Ode to Sunshine and History from Below to One is One. One is One album is janky, creative, and edgy. It's high energy, beautiful, slow and emotional, all packed into one. It's an album where you don't question what song you're in, but you just let it play all the way through because you're just content with all the songs on it. Starting off with Villains, it creates such a contradiction with the line, all my heroes start as villains. Songs like Thoughts on Seneca are just sweet lullabies that display vulnerability, especially with violins in the background that reflects the Stoic philosopher's outlook that we are our own worst enemy. The last song is a great closure to the album, On and On, Look Away. It's uplifting and has a slow build to it, leaving you in a good mood when the album is over. Again, this album dives into many different things such as finding love, going through a recovery program during lottery ticket, and lamenting what we could have done differently in our life during the beginning. Hands down, one of my most favorite bands of all time, and I hope I get to see them again in concert soon. So that's it, guys. That was the list. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you made it this far, I truly appreciate it. That was my top 10 albums of the year. I can't wait to do this again next year. I'm already so excited to see what's on the lineup. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and see you next year from MB Lee here on the Beat Sessions.